Kyle, what did they? Is that supposed?
Is that a Glock?
I don't know. Is that the 6th generation of perfection? I don't.
What did they? It doesn't even like. What?
I don't know. All I'm saying is, you know what we should do? We should talk about another 5 things you shouldn't do to your Glock. Welcome back, everybody. Clint here today, and we've got Kaya back with us.
What's up, guys?
And we're with Classic Firearms, here to bring you another video, a part 2 to a video that you really liked. I mean, you guys loved it. You showed it a lot of love, and so we're going to bring you something else, a part 2 to 5 more things you shouldn't do to your Glock. Because it's funny, we keep hearing things that
people can't stop, man.
People can't stop, right? So let's just go ahead and roll into this. Yeah. But quick disclaimer before we roll into our number 5 thing, this series or this episode, it's your gun. It's your gun. Do what you want to with it. I don't care, quite personally, as long as you get it from us. I don't care. But with that being said, I'm just here to give you my opinion, our opinion on some things, and take it or leave it up to you. So with that, let's just go ahead and talk about this. The Glock 45, the Gen 5, the entire new generation of Glock, has been a very popular item. I think this is definitely the most perfect out of all the generations of perfection, right?
Gen 5, yeah.
Yeah,
Glock definitely did it.
Until Gen 6 comes out, which is more of the same. But anyway,
this is true.
Anyway, we're not here to hate on Glock too much, but let's just go ahead and roll into it. What everybody really likes about this gun is the fact that it does have an actual Ambi slide release, right? So I can go ahead and lock the slide to the rear, then by using my index finger, I can actually drop it on the right-hand side. It's no longer just on the left-hand side, which is a pretty neat thing. By the way, another disclaimer, I'm currently not flagging Kaya. Some of you guys can't understand angles, but look at the angle of the, there we go. Okay, anyway, that's fine. Keep calling me out for BS in the comment section. I don't care. Except I just talked about it for a minute, so maybe I do care. All right, running on. Okay, so here's the problem though. People are saying, oh, that's cool. I'm gonna buy one of these, but I've already got like a cool, tactical, milled out Gen 4 that I'm just gonna throw in my Gen 5.
Like
frame.
Ryan on this case, on his Gen 5.
Like Ryan's on, this is pretty cool, right? But the only problem is though, because it has extra features and there are some internal differences, it's not gonna work for you. Actually, each generation pretty much has its own different type of trigger housing. If you look at the trigger housing from like a Gen 3 to Gen 4, the very end of it, one's a little bit more sharper, one's more of an angled edge. It's not gonna work together, quite simply. And if you notice too, look at notice where the slide lock is, right? How that has that locked into place. This is actually milled on the slide. Your Gen 4 doesn't have that because, well, it wasn't designed with an Ambi slide release in mind. So it will not have that. You'll also notice, excuse me, 1 second.
Yep.
You'll also notice that what am I trying to say really quick? The safety plunger.
I'm just trying to figure out why you just turned your back.
Oh, because YouTube loves us and they keep giving us strikes. But anyway, you'll also notice that the safety plunger in the Gen 5 slide is actually going to differ from the Gen 4, Gen 3, whatever that might be. Right. You don't have it apart yet, Elvin?
I'm trying.
There we go. Notice comparatively, we've got a more rounded safety plunger versus more of like this rectangular style that they have underneath here. I simply don't think it's going to work. Again, the way these parts actually communicate to one another, they kind of have to, well, be designed that way. Yeah. So for one big reason though that I can't simply take this and throw it on here, other than, that's about the same size.
Yeah.
But you'll notice, let's just screw it. Let's just see what happened. What's the worst that could happen, right? Well, you can just notice. You can just notice too the extractor and where it lines up. That's not going to work. It's
not going to work.
It's just simply
just doesn't line up.
No, so there's no way it's going to happen. So don't waste your money, right? I'm sorry. Don't waste your money on all these different parts and everything, and then think it's going to work. Even your Gen 3, I've seen this too, when people do their own custom builds, which is cool. Absolutely, I encourage that greatly. Go out there, build some guns. For instance, like the Gen 3 recoil spring and guide rod, or the entire recoil assembly there, going into a Gen 4 also isn't going to work. You're going to have some adapters that are in play. Again, more money that you're going to have to throw at it, which if you don't care, then sure, that's fine. So that's all there is to it. So yes, let me put this back together. And the reason I'm turning my back to show that one and not when that, because that simply doesn't work, right? So if we get hit for that, I don't know what to do. But anyway, the generational parts, trying to go ahead and build one out. The Glock 47 came out, right? So people are probably going to be saying now, like, oh, look at that. I've got a modular Glock. I'm just going to put my 19 slide on my 17 frame and call it a day.
You're going to be disappointed.
Sorry, it's not a SIG 320. Oh. Number 4. Speaking of, let's talk about ammo, because for our number 4, cheap ammo. There's nothing wrong with cheap ammo. Let me throw that out there, okay? Like some basic steel case, whatever you can find for, negative 2 cents a round, whatever it might be. Yeah, sure, run it. If your gun runs it, absolutely, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do it, right? Especially if that's what you can afford. However, caveat, for carry ammo, if you're actually gonna be using this for defensive purposes where your life becomes a life or death situation, or a situation you find yourself in becomes a life or death situation, and your life is at stake, I would like to trust something a little bit more quality.
Absolutely.
Personally, right? So whether that be 100, like some good quality 115 or 124 grain, 124 is kind of my favorite, for especially just for like FMJ, everyday shooting, love 124. I don't know why, I just like it a lot.
Yeah.
And then there's, heavier stuff, hollow points, 147. And I mentioned this in part 1, so I don't want to talk about that again too much. But whatever it is you do decide to carry, as long as your gun functions and shoots it reliably, that's what matters. Don't, for the very first time, load your gun up with some hollow points and then stick it in your pants and start carrying it around for your defensive gun, because what you don't know is whether or not it's actually gonna go bang when you pull the trigger, or it's only gonna go bang once and then cause a malfunction because your gun doesn't like to feed that type of ammo. Have you seen any type of stuff like that?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Certain guns will not feed hollow point, for example, right? It's just the nose is too flat and whatever it won't.
I know like 1911s are typically notorious for that type of thing.
Yeah, they
or they used to be. I know with modern machining and more modern cartridges and things like that too, it's nowhere near as big a deal, but it's something that is still to take into consideration. Glocks, with being how they're built and everything, they run hollow points pretty well. But I'm just saying, don't let it be the first time. Sorry.
They'll definitely spit through it. Glocks will, yeah. They're known to work. They're very reliable. But you really, for defensive situations, you want to make sure that you pick the right ammo for that. And also, you were talking about like reloads and stuff. Mm-hmm. People just loading their own ammo.
It's a late night. You're watching the game and you're having a couple of drinks. Next thing you know what sounds good? Reload press. Yeah. Heck yeah, dude. Are you ready to risk it all and just, who needs eyes, faces, and hands? You'll be all right.
Yeah. I mean,
just send it. We've all seen that episode of Walking Dead, right? They're all lined up there and Eugene. Yeah, you know what I mean?
So you'll find a few rounds. You fire a few rounds, and then one of them just go like, psh, that's it. That's your squid load, right? And then
we'll just shoot another round to clear it out.
Yeah, that's what people do. Why not, right?
Don't do that.
Do not. Yeah, next thing is, even if nothing happens to you, which there's a good chance you may get hurt, say goodbye to your Glock.
Yeah,
that's for sure. So
yeah. So just make sure you are running some quality ammo, at least for your carry stuff. Range stuff, practice use. Heck, run the cheapest stuff there is, and if you do have a malfunction, practice your malfunction clearing.
Yeah.
There you go.
And don't use that ammo again. If it's an ammo-related issue.
Works for me.
Yeah.
Let's go to our next topic, or not next topic, but our next number 3.
Yeah? Well, what's that?
This is my Glock 40 problem solver, Kaya.
Really?
And for our number 3, we're talking about DIY custom jobs. And if you've ever seen that video, you'll know that man was not holding a Glock 40, nor was it a problem solver. It was all the problems. It's your high point. Anyway, why did I bring this out? Because I actually wanted to customize my own Glock. So I decided to add more metal, take away all of the grip texture, and...
You could have gotten yourself a high point. Instead.
This is dumb. Anyway, let's continue on. So there's all sorts of DIY custom jobs out there, right? For instance, I also mentioned in the last one, I spray painted my own gun. I taped it off or whatever, make sure that paint doesn't get into the internals and stuff. But I knew that it was already beat up. I don't care, right? Like I said, to each their own, do what you think is gonna be good for you and what you like. In this case, let's just say you wanna be like the cool kids and put an optic on your Glock or any other pistol for that matter, and you think, you know what, dude, I could drill and tap my own slide. That'll be fine.
Kind of cut it right. You're supposed to cut it right around here somewhere.
So I mean, you can drill and tap your own slide if you want to, but you know, I think about it and it's like,
what would you do? Would you cut it if you were doing it yourself? Or would you
what, like slide milling, like metal work?
Yes.
No. I'm sending that stuff off. Jaeger Works, DP Customs here in Monroe, something like that, right? That I'm sending my stuff off. I'm going to spend the money and get it cut right. Then there's so much is going too far, right?
Oh.
The more metal and stuff you take away from the actual gun, more side cuts and windows and everything else, you are actually decreasing kind of the reliability of the gun. There's a reason why it was made the way it was made with the parts that it has. Am I guilty of pretty much changing all those parts? Yes, but am I also guilty of, not in a bad way, about doing the research to make sure those parts are going to work well together and reliably to make sure I actually have a functioning firearm by the time I'm done? Also yes. So there you have it, right? And on the same token, if you're not comfortable with, you know, a soldering iron or a Dremel, but you think, oh, it's only plastic, I'm just going to, let me stipple my own gun really quick. People do some pretty cool work there, you know, get their little wood burning kit and decide to start doing all sorts of little textures and whatnot into their grip. That's cool and all, but just remember, that is the gun. If you destroy that, you've destroyed your gun. So there's that. There's all sorts of custom jobs out there that just, again, aren't great and decrease the reliability. So keep that in mind.
So you're talking about like this gun over here, a custom stippling job here.
Yeah.
Right. But this is professional, obviously. You can just tell.
And you pay for it.
Exactly. Salient arms right here. It looks really good. But I wanted to touch base on the paint thing. The paint, I've personally seen somebody just use a different grade paint, not a Cerakote type, right? It was not for a gun. It not only affected reliability, the slide sometimes wouldn't function properly because it was just too thick, and at the same time, the paint was so sleek, and it was raining when we were trying to shoot, right?
Yeah.
You couldn't even rack the gun. Your hands would
So
just
you just slide right off.
Yep, absolutely. So it wasn't good. It wasn't safe
Yeah.
in a way. So if you're gonna paint your own gun, don't. Just send it to somebody who's professional and Cerakoted. And as for milling, I purposely did this. I actually removed the red dot from this Shadow Systems, and to show you, like, this is professionally precision cut. And if you try to do this yourself, or you try to, as you said, tap and drill, there's a very, very good chance you're gonna ruin your Glock and you're gonna have to go get a new one.
Yeah, or at least your slide on that aspect.
Yeah.
You know, it actually makes me think too, like, hey, you know what? That all sounds like a lot of money. I'm just gonna JB weld my optic to my slide. You know, so
JB weld.
Yeah,
Have
you know,
seen that before?
Yeah.
I'm sure somebody's doing it.
There's plenty of gunsmiths out there. All right. So anyway.
Not safe.
Not safe. Yeah, so just do things safely. Make sure that you're going to keep your gun reliable, things like that, all right? And as far as Kaya's talking about painting your gun, get some painter's tape, paint off the internals, spray paint. Go to town on that thing. I did it, and it works fine.
Spray paint, sure, but if you get yourself a little brush right here and just start brushing the damn thing, I mean, it's not going to be good.
You know what? I'll do that next.
Seen it.
I'll do it next.
I have firsthand seen it. Yeah. The gun, the paint was so thick. When you just racked the slide, it just wasn't the same. It wasn't smooth, and it was causing some feeding issues, and it was very slippery. So, hey, you know what? As we said, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah. No, I get where you're coming from, though, because if you don't paint off or tape off those parts there and paint starts to sleek in there, and all of a sudden you're going to have stuff hindering the internals, not good. So I get where you're coming from on that. Tape it off, paint it, go have a good time. Let's talk about our number 2. And for our next little topic or opinion here, Kaya, you said you've seen this?
Yes, and I've seen some people run Glocks with no sights whatsoever. Like literally sleek top.
Like no red dot or anything?
Okay, I've seen red dot with no sights, no iron sights. And I've also seen no red dots, no iron sights, just sleek top Glocks. And I've also engaged in a conversation with a gentleman who trains firearms, or teaches firearms. And here's the deal. He says, I want to get my muscle memory going, right? Fine, I've done that myself, trained with my sights taped off, but He literally carried his gun like that too.
Carried his gun?
He literally carried it. That was his carry gun.
No sights.
Yep. A flat dark earth, Glock, no sight. And I was like, man, if you do get involved in a shooting, let's say you were accurate, whether you were accurate to your target or somebody behind it.
I don't know if that's how accuracy works.
I know. So, I mean, that's definitely, in all seriousness, that's a terrible thing, right? You're accountable for all your shots.
Right.
You're going to have a really hard time in court when this is taken from you and there's no sights in it and you're running with that. Training, yes, but carrying, absolutely none. When you and I were talking, even if you're accurate, you're gonna have a hard time. But if you're not, you're probably gonna have a bad day. Like, you're gonna die.
You're gonna die. Yeah. So you might not even find your way to court because
Exactly.
you didn't hit your target, and they hit you though because they probably had sights on their guns.
Yeah.
So here's my take on it. I can understand for a certain training aspect. I can understand for competition. You know, perhaps you just want to run a red dot and you want to run it custom wherever it's fit on the gun, right? And you just don't want to deal with your sights. So okay, I've seen some people run stuff like that. Personally, that's not my deal. I like to be able to co-witness. I also like there to be a plan B because sometimes plan A doesn't work and plan A is my red dot. Sometimes I forget to change the battery.
Yeah.
Sometimes batteries die. Sometimes optics fail. I would like to be able to still engage my target accurately, and I can do that with iron sights, right? So that's something I would like to take into consideration. And also, I also understand the training aspect of having no sights whatsoever or taping them off, right? Again, getting that muscle memory, especially with live rounds, you're at a paper target 5 yards in front of you. All you want to do is just come up, boom. But at the same time, it's the entire train how you fight type of mindset, right? You know, and again, I like to train with whatever type of materials I might be using, whether that be red dot, iron sight, and I want to make sure I'm coming up to target. Again, you guys probably see me do this all the time. I'm aiming at a doorknob over there, and I can come up, go here, little low, okay? Up here, all right, cool. Felt that one. That one was actually pretty good. I'm happy with that. I'm gonna stop there. So these are the types of things that you can do to increase your effectiveness,
Absolutely.
your shot placement, but keep sights on your guns. Even if they're Glock sights. Even if they're Glock sights.
They suck.
Which aren't great. It's still better than no sights. All right, just
Absolutely.
want to throw that out there. There's a lot of definitely better replacements out there. Again, I'm a huge fan of the Trigicon suppressor height night sights. Even if I'm not running a suppressor,
Oh, yeah. So much easier to pick
they
them up.
just pick up naturally.
Yeah.
You know? So anyway, we'll leave that one there. But the fact that you've seen people run no sights,
Yeah. I don't get her either, so don't do
that might should have been our number one pick. But anyway, let's roll into our number one pick. You know, if you're gonna have a gun and you're gonna carry said gun, you should probably have a method or means to carry it. So our number one pick here for things you probably shouldn't do to your Glock is get it a crappy holster. So we're going to show you today a quality holster like what we've got right here. Kyle, why don't you talk to us about what you've got set up here?
Yeah, this is just I've got the Shadow Systems over here. This is just a Safariland leg holster outside the waistband, obviously, holster. It's level 2. You got a little button over here and get this thing out. And if it's in here, you yank on it, it's not going to come out. I understand for defensive carry, concealed carry, this is not a viable option. But it just shows you a solid holster that's got retention, like a really active retention. You've got to press this button to get this thing out, and constructed from a very, very solid polymer.
Right. Now, there's a lot of different holster companies out there that do make a quality product. Again, you guys hear me talk about it all the time. That's because I am a fan and I use them all the time. Alpha Omega Kydex, which makes all sorts of different designs as well. Safariland are one of those that has been a duty holster that people have been using with all sorts of different levels for a very long time.
That's what I use all my law enforcement career. I use nothing but Safariland. Different versions, but all Safariland, yeah.
Right, and so if you guys have questions on what different types of levels of retention there are, we actually have a video that we did on that as well, so check that out. But here's the other thing. You guys may recall that one time that I was running a drill at the Fort Scott Munitions Battleline Tactical 2-day course, and I forgot to actually close the hood on a holster that wasn't designed for the gun that I was carrying. It was a holster
that just flew off your holster and fell.
Here's the funny part. It was a SIG 320 and it didn't go off. So that's good. But
that's good. Yeah, it's very, very good.
No, so it was actually a holster designed for my FNX 45 Tactical. All I did was tighten the heck out of it because I did not prepare whatsoever in this. I was like, oh, this will work fine as long as I close the hood. Well, with all the things that were happening and going on and running this drill, literally sprinting, we were pretty much like running sprints, like suicides, but with our kit and our guns. So, okay, cool. And well, what do? You hit here, you turn around, and you pop back up, right? Yeah. After about maybe 25 yards of sprinting. The moment I kind of pivoted and turned back around over here, my pistol said yeet, and it was gone. Bye. Just like yeet.
And that didn't go off.
No, I didn't go off.
Well, if you didn't have,
yeah,
there's a potential that it could have gone off, but if you had nothing in the chamber, it would not have gone off regardless.
Shut your mouth, dude. Of course there was one in the chamber. What do I look like? You? Anyway.
I did carry one in the chamber, but however, listen, that's a good segue. Yeah. Talking about holsters.
Yes.
There are holsters out there that are designed for people who don't carry one in the chamber.
Oh, yeah. So let's talk about that because we were talking about crap holsters.
I was trying to actually segue into that. That's why I brought the holster.
Because we have been talking about more quality holsters. Yeah. And just make sure that the holster you do gets designed for your gun. That'll save you a lot of problems. Ask me how I know.
Yeah.
Cool. So there's holsters you're talking about that are designed for empty chamber carrying.
Yeah. So it's stupid. Don't get that. If you're going to carry your Glock with not one in the chamber, perhaps you should get more training. That means you're not comfortable with it. Just get more training so you're comfortable with it, because I promise you there's going to be situations, God forbid it, hopefully it never happens to any of you watching this, you're not going to have time to rack this thing.
Yeah.
But holsters are like this. Your gun kind of sits high a little bit. The slide is kind of blocked, and I don't know if I can replicate it. There you go. It doesn't. Let me see.
Okay, well, anyway, what you're saying is there's a holster that's designed for an empty chamber, so that way whenever you pull this thing up, you go down and that racks one, and then you just...
That's right. You just put your hand down, push it down, it racks it, and now you can take it out, and you've got a loaded gun.
So when seconds matter, milliseconds matter, the last thing I want to be doing is thinking about having to chamber my gun and then shoot. That also, even with a holster that isn't that way, having to draw it, rack it, and then shoot. Some people are like, oh, that takes, that only adds, half a second of time or something like that, which maybe you don't have half a second, but also it's not just the time that it adds, but in that stressful situation, who's to say that you're going to come up and then actually, that was a short stroke, you know what I mean? Like, who's to say I might not even be able to I can still reset the trigger. But as far as actually chambering around, again, I'm doing this, there's a magazine inserted, not locking back.
Yeah.
Get it way on back there, then go, right?
And I promise you, you and I can get in a situation right now, you're not going to be able to use two hands.
Right.
You're going to try to protect yourself or do something else, perhaps incapacitate it, arm, right? You're going to have to use one hand. So how many times have you seen hit?
Yeah. I practice that drill fairly often. Yeah, just a quick little tap, slap, punch, whatever the heck it is, and then just back off, draw your gun and go.
So don't carry one in the chamber, get enough training, and don't get one of those holsters that's gonna make you rack your gun, whatever. You're gonna jam it, short stroke it, whatever.
Get a holster, a quality holster designed for the specific gun that you're carrying. Yeah. Universal holsters that are out there, Uncle Mike's, little things like that, they might be decent sleeves if you're just gonna keep it in your safe. You just want something maybe to protect the finish. Mm-hmm. There's little things like that, pocket holsters. Don't carry in your pocket. If you're comfortable with it and it works for you, sure. But I do believe with today's gun culture, America, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
In today's gun culture, though, there's so much technology, so much, I guess you say there's such a drive for innovation and comfort and ergonomics when it comes to carrying and whatnot, that, well, there's not much of an excuse as to why you have a crappy holster not designed for your gun. So my excuse was I wasted time and was lazy and didn't order the right holster before that battle line course.
Yeah, some people spend a lot of money on their Glock or Shadow Systems, whatever, right? And get a cheap holster.
Yeah, don't skip out on the holster, get a sling, all that type of stuff too for your rifle and all that. So have a way to carry your gun, and we'll leave it off there for this episode. 5 more things not to do to your Glock. What are some other things? Because I have a feeling the more we scour the internet and talk to people and attend more courses, we're going to find more things that, we probably shouldn't do. So not even specifically for your Glock, but maybe just for different types of pistols or rifles or different setups that we see that are just like, ooh, I wouldn't do that. Would you? And in what application and why? Right? Because maybe I'll learn something. I could definitely use a lot of learning, actually. So yeah, let us know what you think about this list that we have right now. And for those of you that are curious, what's cool about the guy behind the cameras, he's also a gun guy, and this is his Glock 45. This is a JagerWorks cut slide. We do have the Trijicon RMR here. This is not an MOS Glock 45, G45. This was actually milled for the RMR. What sights are these, Ryan?
Those are Dawson Precision.
Dawson Precision sights. These things are nice and high, as you can see. They fit almost flush with the RMR, but it's still high enough in the rear so you can actually pick up your front sight, which is pretty solid. Suppressor height sight. You've got also the Radian afterburner on this barrel, or for this barrel, which is a really neat design because it's actually designed for 115 grain 9mm. You typically see once you start adding comps, or any type of muzzle device on a pistol, you start to take away from its reliability. This was designed with 115 grain, the most popular weight for 9mm, in mind. We have run it with 124, 147, and did we run it with the 151?
I don't think so.
Not yet. No. Okay, but we have run it with the 124, 115, 147, and yep.
Works just fine.
Works. So that's pretty sweet, right? Surefire X300 Turbo, so that was the one that has the really focused candela there, focused beam right there that you can see, which is a pretty nice little setup. Plan on doing anything to the trigger, or are you gonna keep it factory?
Factory trigger.
Change your trigger right away as soon as you get your Glock.
So here's the thing, man. If it works, right? I always talk crap about it, but I will be honest with you. We've shot this one quite a bit now, and this trigger's starting to break in some. I will say this. It beats the hell out of the 509. All right, so we're going to end it off there, guys. Make sure you head on over to